You know, as a content creator, you get to hear a lot of different opinions. Many, in fact, that you honestly don't really care about, but it allows you to get a rough idea of what a vocal part of the community thinks of certain issues. I mean, we could just say that, well, Overwatch was designed as a team game, so obviously the solo queue experience would be subpar, but it's just so much more fun to dive deeper than that. So today, my friends, I'm going to address all of your complaints, or at least I hope so. The claim that the ladder is completely broken, accusations of too many players being in the wrong rank, and we're also going to address why it feels like your team is holding you back from ranking up. That is not to say that your feelings are unjustified. This is more to give you some information as to what exactly is going on. That's not gonna make your gameplay experience any less frustrating, but that's also not the point. Not every problem can be fixed, so rather than having players cry out for the devs to fix the experience for solo queuers, I'm going to attempt to explain why that is never going to be fully possible. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so there are many different ways I can try to make you guys understand this, and I've spent a long time trying to figure out which is the best one. It's gonna start off a little boring and basic, but trust me, this basic knowledge is important to understand the bigger issues we're facing, so just try to bear with me here, okay? What makes a player truly skilled at Overwatch? From all the different skill sets present in this game, I have taken the 6 most prominent ones as displayed in another video before. Those include tracking, aiming, predicting, positioning, decision making, and awareness. A player that is good at all of these things will inevitably get a high rank, given that they put a sufficient amount of effort into their gameplay. Now, this is our optimal player. This is the kind of player we wish to be, and this is also the kind of player we wish to be paired up with. In most other games, there's always a sort of progression curve. All of the skill sets necessary to be considered truly skillful are a requirement throughout your entire gameplay experience. So in our hypothetical different game, we would start off with a base level of all of these skill sets, and naturally we'd be a little better with some things than others. As we just started off playing, our gameplay would reflect that of a low ranked player. Now, as we play more, we obviously learn and increase all of our skill sets. Again, naturally we'd have an easier time getting better at some than others. However, the game will always force us to try and work on all of them simultaneously in order to achieve a high rank, because these skill sets are always inherent to the gameplay. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? A game has been built with certain skill sets in mind, and these skills are necessary for it to perform in any given rating. With this kind of game design, you can always be sure that at any rating you achieve, the players you play with and against will be about as good at all these things as you, because being good at just one of them is not good enough to perform in this type of hypothetical game. Now, let's take a look at how Overwatch has been designed. Again, we're just starting to learn the game, so all of our skills are rather low. Depending on the kind of experience we bring from previous games, we might exceed at 1 or 2, but that's about it. Here's where things get a little wonky in Overwatch. As you can see, our example player has not been gradually improving at all the skill sets necessary to be considered truly skillful. So how come he reached a high rank along the lines of Master? How can you get into the top 3% of the entire player base without exceeding at all of these skill sets? The answer is your team for one thing and hero design for another. As much as the MMR system tries to attach a value to your gameplay performance, Overwatch in its core is about team play. It has been designed in a way that allows players to compensate for things that others are not good at, and by that have everyone shine with the one thing that they are good at. What ultimately matters is not which team has the stronger players on an individual basis, but which team manages to work better as a team to make use of their players' strong points. This is where this feeling of I can't carry any harder than I did comes from. A GM player smurfing in Platinum is not necessarily going to win every single match, but their individual performance will be acknowledged by the MMR system, which means that they are awarded with more points per win, meaning they don't even need to win every single game to begin with. But why is that the case? After all, this is not how many other team-based games function, at least not to such an extreme extent. Well, the problem in Overwatch is the lack of cohesion. By trying to please each and every person on Earth with a wide variety of heroes that appeal to many different skill sets and many different levels of expertise, the game is plain and simply lacking a uniform standard of gameplay performance that would usually function as a sort of gating mechanism to reach a high elo. In other games, as a bronze rank player, you could very well look at the highest level of play and try to learn from it, because again, the guys you're trying to learn from do exactly all the things you have to do in your bronze games as well. It is just that they are significantly better at all these things that include aiming, positioning, etc. But in Overwatch, since we don't have a standard like that which would dictate the level of expertise we have to show in each of these 6 skill sets, it is very well possible to get into a high elo with only being really good at a couple of them. So here's how that works in game. You as a solo queuer join 5 other random people which the matchmaker deems equal in skill, but it is not saying that they are good at the exact same things that you are good at. The only thing it is saying is that they can do something at the level that you can do something. Whether that is aiming, predicting, or positioning does not matter. But why does that not matter? Well, because not every single hero requires all these skill sets in equal amounts. For example, a player could main Mercy, a hero that requires disgusting amounts of awareness with very little margin for error, meaning that every decision needs to be on point, but everything else might as well be subpar because this hero simply does not require those skill sets. Another player could main McCree, a hero that relies on pinpoint accuracy to be effective in their role and good positioning to stay alive due to his lack of mobility. And that is the extent of skills he has to provide to be good at this hero. These players that are good at such vastly different skill sets are considered equal in skill by the matchmaker. They have proven a level of expertise at the things that are important for the heroes that they play the most. And that is what the game cares about. If your hero does not benefit from good aim, then it is not going to expect you to be good at aiming. Here is the problem we run into in solo queue. The game has been designed around the idea of 6 players working together as a coherent unit. Players are supposed to make up for things that their teammates are not good at by showing extraordinary expertise at the one thing that they are good at. In short, that simply means that, realistically speaking, I cannot imagine that the devs created a game around the idea of showing a high level of skill with each and every hero. Specializing yourself is something that you and your teams benefit from, even when you are looking at pro teams. Pro players might all be equally as good at decision making and positioning while providing a lot of awareness, but they still have a shot caller, someone whom the others trust to be the best when it comes to making decisions, someone to lead the team to make sure they actually work together rather than trying to perform individually. And even further than that, teams have designated support, tank, and DPS players. Those will obviously still show a certain level of expertise with other heroes, but the team simply benefits more from the members being exceptionally good at one particular thing. The idea that a player in solo queue is supposed to be good at all 6 skill sets is simply unrealistic, but as unrealistic as it is still a necessity to provide a consistent gameplay experience. And I really hope that you can see how that contradicts each other. We will never be able to create an environment that's optimal for solo queuers, because that would mean that every single player would need to be good at all the things that make someone truly skilled, and that at equal levels. You're expecting them to do something not even pro players have to do, and that in a game that was never designed with the intent of forcing improvement at all these skill sets simultaneously. Here's the deal when it comes to solo queue. It's all about evening out your odds. As we established at the beginning, someone who is good at all 6 skill sets will inevitably reach a high rank, and that's because they maximize their chances of being useful to every team they join by providing every single skill in the game. If you're only good at a couple of things, whenever you queue up, you have to hope that the matchmaker throws into a team that benefits from the exact things that you are good at. There is no matchmaker in the world that could group up players according to these criteria in Overwatch. There are way too many variables to make that consistently possible. The only way to negate that is by putting the responsibility of forming a proper group in the player's hands, meaning they would have to group up with 5 other individuals that they think would complement each other's skill sets and by that make a good team. But as we all know, 6 stacking is not exactly encouraged by the system, which turns a lot of players off from even trying it. If you ever end up in a game where you think, wow, how the fuck did that guy get into my elo, then odds are that this player is good at something that your team does not need at that time. It is very well possible to end up in a team where everyone has godlike positioning, but nobody can land a shot. I mean, let's put aside the fact that someone can simply have a bad day, which would explain why they perform poorly. The moment a player is pushed outside their comfort zone and they have to attempt to be good at something that they are simply not good at, then yeah, their performance is going to suffer. Fact of the matter is that no, the ladder is not completely busted in the sense that, and I quote, most players are not in the ranks that they belong. That's absolute bullshit. It's far more likely that these players that you deem unworthy of your elo are just as good as you. It's just that they are good at something else, and sometimes that something is simply not what your team needs in that particular match. But that's not their fault. They can't sign up to be put into a team that needs a Reinhardt main, and your team can't sign up for a player that is good at aiming. We all queue up indiscriminately, and whether or not our skills work together is kind of random. But what you have to understand is is that the enemies are in the exact same position. More often than not, the best course of action is to try and make something work with the tools that are at your disposal. If you play in Diamond, then you don't necessarily need a McCree that plays at Diamond level. Sometimes a soldier that aims more like a Platinum can get the job done. Players are rarely ever incapable of doing anything that is not their best feat. Only because your strongest point is positioning doesn't mean you can't pick up a hero that requires tracking. What's important is to be adaptive. The question is, do we need a GM level Bastion here, or would we benefit from a Masters level Pharah? Don't think that only because you're not the best at something that you can't pick up a hero that you're not amazing at, because it might be that your subpar Pharah is good enough to win the game because the enemies happen to not get any strong hit scan players. Again, be adaptive of the problems in front of you, rather than limiting yourself to the one thing that you're exceptionally good at. Rule of thumb is that, usually at least, players can play pretty much any hero sufficiently at a level that would reflect players that are one division below them. As a Diamond Soldier main, odds are that you will still be able to pull off a Platinum level D.Va or Zenyatta. The only problem here are one tricks, because these types of players willingly limit themselves to never play anything but the one thing that they exceed at. Meaning, yeah, chances are that these guys really can't play anything else sufficiently. That's not to say that this is accurate for every single one trick, it's more about likelihood here. At the end of the day, the absolute vast majority of us plays this game completely wrong, and that is sadly fact. Rather than actually trying to be adaptive of the challenges in front of us and working together with the other people on our team, we decide to run our favorite heroes face first into the match in hopes of that being good enough to win and rank up. If that doesn't help, we stop blaming those around us or the system we play in, because ultimately that's far easier than actually sitting down to think about how the things we curse so much even work. Bottom line is that this solo queue experience in Overwatch cannot be fixed. There's nothing currently in the game that either teaches players how to play properly given the environment we're in, while enforcing what they taught us as well. Neither is there a reason for players to work on all of their skills simultaneously to actually create a pleasant solo queue environment. And you know why that is? Because this game, from the ground up, was never intended to be played in solo queue with an optimal experience in mind. This game mode in this environment is inherently suboptimal. But this is me done for the day, so I talk about the solo queue experience in Overwatch. Guys, if you want to do me a favor, then share this video with a friend you think would find it interesting. I am really thankful for all the positive comments you guys leave and all the insightful discussion that happens. As much as I appreciate that you express your desire for wanting to see more videos like this, these projects are very time intensive in their production, so the more eyes I can get on this, the better. Anyway, it's time for me to sign off, so don't forget to drop me a like on your way up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and hope to see you all next time.